You know, this KC Cobra Ride here at the Colonie Center Mall has been the bane of my existence now for like going on a month now. It all of a sudden just stopped working. I couldn't figure out why it doesn't have power. I was checking everything in it. I opened the trunk here. I was looking for power at the computer in the back and everything. I couldn't figure out why there was no power. I went down here and removed the cover and checked the fuse in here. Made sure the fuse was good. The fuse was fine. You know, I was messing with the switches. I was checking for power here. I had power here from the mall, which comes in underneath the ride here. And then I was trying to check power from here to there. So this is where the power comes in from that. And then this runs along here. And then I noticed power wire runs along there and then runs inside the frame here all the way up to the front. And then I noticed, oh look, there's another wire up here right there that comes back from the front that runs up there to like the laptop power supply thing that powers the computer system there and the control board and everything back there. I don't know if you can see anything or not, but so I'm like, well, that's odd. Well, if the thing is right here, why doesn't this wire just run right up there? Why does it run all the way forward and then all the way back? So I traced the wire along the frame here all the way up, and it comes in underneath the bottom of the frame all the way up around here over there. So I opened up this and looked inside there and saw the wire run across over to this side. So then I opened this up here and there's a big open spot in the back here, and lo and behold, there's a timer in there, and this timer stopped working for some reason. There was no display on it, there was no anything on it. So this is why it was losing power. It was the timer. Now this is a newer style timer. I don't see anywhere in it where there's batteries that you can replace on it. Some of the older timers had like AA batteries that you had to replace in it that actually powered it. This doesn't seem to be one of them, but I don't know why it's not working, but that's what was wrong with it, was the timer. So like I said, I was around with this thing for weeks, using my multimeter, checking for power everywhere, trying to see where it was breaking down and why I wasn't getting power to the computer for it. Well, that would be why the timer was defective and not working. So that's all it was. I'm happy I figured it out, but I'm also not happy that it took me this long to figure it out. So now that I've eliminated the timer and I plugged the cables together that would go into the timer, I want to make sure that it's going to work now. So I'm going to plug the mall power back into the back of this connector here and turn the power on and make sure that the ride's going to work. So, moment of truth here, right? Alright. Hey, look at that! We've got lights! We've got lights! Is the monitor going to turn on here in a minute? Hopefully. There it goes. I mean, it takes a little bit to boot up here, but hey, look at that. We got power. Everything's working again. Gotta love it. So, that was all that was wrong with it, was the timer. So if I could have figured that out weeks ago, this thing wouldn't have been down for that long, losing money. Hey, it's back up and running. Awesome. Finally. So, yep, that's all it was the timer. I still gotta replace this at some point. That's gonna require dropping this whole skirt here in order to get underneath it. But hey, it's up and running now, at least. Now that I got rid of the defective timer that was causing all the problems. Now I can put this back together again and test it and make sure. I mean, it should be working fine now that it's got power back to it, but I just want to make sure that everything's working with it, which it should be. But let me put this back together again here now. Alright, so I cleaned up everything under here. I put all the screws back on for the skirt there, put the cover back on over the electrical cord and the switch. So now it's time to test it out. So I borrowed a $1 bill from the bill changer over there. So let's make sure it actually works here. So it looks like it's working. But hey, it's working again at least. That's all I care about. So another heroic fix. Getting the KC Cobra working again. So hey, at least it's running again, so it can make me some more money, I guess. So that's all I care about. I got a couple other things I got to do at the mall here still, but at least one thing's fixed. So that's good. Well, I thought replacing the timer and the KC Cobra Ride here was going to fix it, and it did temporarily at least, but obviously there was something else wrong with the ride, and that's what caused the timer to burn out in the first place. So as soon as I removed the timer and just plugged everything in directly, it worked for maybe a day or two, and then I went back on September 22nd, 2021, and the ride was down again. So like 2 or 3 days later, after I had repaired it by removing that faulty torque timer that was in it, the ride was down again. So I had a problem with my multimeter. The 9-volt battery died in it. So thankfully, the people upstairs that work in the, well, it used to be the Pac-Man zone, but now it's called At the Pier Arcade in Colonie Center Mall. I guess they had to change it due to an issue with naming rights with Namco and stuff like that. But CTM Group bought out Namco a few years ago and took over all of their Namco arcades that they had. But I guess they couldn't get the rights to Pac-Man Zone, so they had to change the name. But in any event, somebody was around up there, and I went in their back room, and they have, some tools and stuff back there. So I borrowed their voltometer and brought it down and tried to check for power. And I was still getting power at the mall power that was coming in to the ride. But then once I unscrewed the skirt again and lifted up the skirt in the back of the ride there, I unplugged the 3-pin Molex connector in there that supplies the power that goes up to the front that went to the timer that I took out and then runs it back to the computer in the trunk of the KC Cobra that runs everything. I unplugged that Molex connector there and checked for power there, and as you can see from the photo here, there is no power there. So for some reason, something was wrong with that switch box in the back there. Now it's got a power cable that comes in there from the mall power, and then it has a switch on it, and there's also a fuse there in between the plug and the switch. Now I've checked the fuse on that numerous times, and the fuse was good in it, so it's not an issue with the fuse. The fuse never blew on it, which I thought was rather interesting, that I've lost power on this thing the first thing I've checked, and I've kept checking it all the time. I keep checking the fuse on it, and the fuse never blew on it. So I know I wasn't getting any power out of that box, so I ended up having to order another one of those boxes from CTM Group. So I ended up having to remove this switch box from the back of the KC Cobra Ride twice now. Once to take pictures of it and send it to CTM Group technical support so that hopefully I could get the correct one, and I was hoping that they might be able to send me one that has the wiring harness and that 3-pin Molex connector already assembled and already on the box to save me some time, and I could just swap it out. So on the box here it says that it's an EMI filter. Of course it's made in China just like everything else. So the part number on it is YB11C1-10A-Q. I'm assuming the 10A there means it's 10 amp rated for the fuse on it. Like I said, it says it's an EMI filter, which is electrical magnetic interference. So it's supposed to clean up any electromagnetic interference from the dirty power coming in from the mall. So it's a combination like EMI filter, fuse, and switch box, basically. I don't know what else to call it. I don't really have a good name for it, I ended up having to take it out. It was mounted with 2 small bolts there with nuts and washers on the back. And the nuts on the back were those like nylon locking nuts. So they're a real pain to get out of there, and they're so small. I think they end up being like, 4 millimeter or something like that, 4.5 millimeter, which is, pretty small. And especially the nut on the bottom was the hardest to get to because it was mounted like right on the frame rail at the bottom there. And there's literally no room to get underneath there with anything to try to grip it and hold on to it so that you could remove it. And then the front of it was just a really small Phillips head screw. So then I had to take it apart, take pictures of it, then put it back together in the machine, then come back later and take it all apart again and replace it once I got the new switch box from CTM Group. So yeah, it was kind of a pain in the But here's a few more pictures of it here, and I took some good pictures of it showing the end of the connector there so they could send it into tech support. And like I said, I was hoping that they could send me that switch box with the wiring harness on it and that 3-pin Molex connector. Unfortunately, when CTM sent the part to me finally, they just sent that box only, and they did not send the wiring harness or the connector for it. So I had to go out to Advanced Auto Parts and buy some crimp connectors to go on the wires there so I could transfer the wiring harness from the old switch to the new one. So as you can see from some of these pictures here from December 7th, the original wires look like they were soldered onto the back of that switch box, and then they put heat shrink wrap over that to protect the end of the connector there, so that hopefully nothing might hit it and short it out or anything like that and cause any issues. So it was kind of a pain to get off of there. You can see these pictures here that show the heat shrink tubing over the original connectors for the wires that came into the switch box. So I had to get a knife and slice off the heat shrink tubing on it, and then you can see where the wires there were soldered onto those terminals that come off the back of the switch box. So rather than deal with trying to unsolder those terminals and resolder them onto the new switch box, I just cut the wires off and stripped them down here. And you can see the Dorman 1/4-inch female disconnects that I bought to go on there. So then I used the wire strippers, stripped them down, and crimped the connectors on there for the 3 wires. And now I've got new connectors on there. And those connectors I got, the female connectors there, were like just exactly the right size to slip over those 3 spade terminals sticking out of the back of the switch box. So they went on there nice and easy. And the connectors I got are like outdoor weatherproof connectors, and they're completely coated in plastic there, as you can see, so that the outside of those connectors isn't exposed. Same thing with like the heat shrink tubing they put over the original terminal connectors on the switch box there. Hopefully nothing will hit there and potentially short it out or anything like that. So there you can see the wiring harness that I cut off of the old switch box there that I put together, and I put those connectors on it. And like I said, those connectors were like just the perfect size to go on those spade terminals that stuck out of the back there. And they just slip over nice and easy and gripped really nice, and everything just worked out perfectly there on that. You can see the size of the original bolts and washer and nuts to mount it on there. You can see how small they are in that picture as well. And that picture. So you can see how small the mounting hardware is on there. And like I said, it's really hard to get in there with your hand or anything, even just to get the bolt started. That's the trickier part that's even more difficult than just getting it apart, is getting that nut back on there to get it started on that bolt to put it back together again. That's the real pain, especially like I said on the bottom there, because there's literally like no room to get in there with anything. It's real time consuming. You have to have a ton of patience with it. What I ended up doing with it is I had a long pair of needle nose pliers, and I just try to grip that nut with the needle nose pliers and get it in there, and then try to turn the bolt on the outside with the Phillips head screwdriver and try to see if I can get that nut started to go on the bolt there. So here's a few more pictures of the terminals that I put on the wires there and hooked them up to the connections on that new switch box there. Now, the other thing you may notice about this is that the wires aren't exactly standard colors for US 120 volt AC. The green wire there is ground, while it's green and yellow striped instead of just green. Usually ground is just green in America. And then they have blue and brown. Now, I believe brown is hot and blue is neutral. And I believe those are actually UK standard wire colors rather than the US. In the US, it should be black and white. Black should be the hot wire, and white should be the neutral wire, and green is ground. So you have to keep that in mind as well when dealing with the wiring on these rides here, because a lot of the rides, like I said, some of the parts here, like that switch box, is obviously made in China. And a lot of the kiddie rides, for whatever reason, are actually made in the UK. And they use UK wiring on it, obviously, instead of US wiring. So after I reattached the wiring harness with the female spade terminal connectors there, the next day on December 8th, I returned to Colonie Center Mall to install the new combination EMI filter fuse switch box in the KC Cobra Ride. Now, I did run into another issue here in that, for whatever reason, I mean, you could even see in the side-by-side comparison there between the two of them. So as you can see from this photo here, they look virtually identical. Nears makes no difference. They're exactly the same. And I have no idea. I mean, you can see they're even the same. Actually, no, they're not the same part number. That's interesting. So the old one was YB11C1-10A-Q. So it was a 10 amp. The one they sent me is a YB11C1-6A-Q. So that's a 6 amp fused box there instead of 10 amp. Well, that's interesting. But otherwise, it's still the same YB11C1 switch box, unless there's literally just a difference between the 10 amp and the 6 amp. I don't know. But for whatever reason, the new box that CTM sent me when I went to install it, as you can see here, and you'll see in the video in a minute here, that the box wouldn't fit in the hole on the frame rail where the old one went. I don't know what the deal was with it, if they made the box on it like just slightly bigger and like larger, more rounded corners on it or something, but it was just barely bigger than the hole where the old one went. so I couldn't get it to mount properly. So it wouldn't fit in there, and instead of putting it in the proper way, which is sliding the whole box in from the front and then bolting it in there, I had to put the switch box and on the inside behind that skirt there and installing it from the inside instead of from the outside the way it was installed on there originally. So in any event, without further ado, here is the rest of the video from December 8th with me installing the new switch box here in the KC Cobra. Okay, so I'm back here at Colonie Center Mall on December 8th. It's taken that long to figure this out. Get the parts ordered, and they still didn't do it quite right, but I'm here to try to finally get this KC Cobra Ride fixed here. So I took the cover back off here. I got everything all set, ready to go. So CTM Group did send me a new switch here. Yeah, it's, you know, whatever it is. It says it's an EMI filter. It's an EMI filter, fuse and switch and power inlet, basically all in one. So there's a fuse back here. I already checked, making sure they included a fuse with it. There's a fuse in there. There's no backup fuse, but hopefully it shouldn't be an issue, I guess. We got the power switch here, and of course when they sent this to me there was no plug included with it, even though I sent them pictures of it and said, hey, can you include this plug right here with it? And of course they just sent me this box, as you can see from the pictures here that I took earlier. So I ended up buying these fully protected heavy duty spade terminal connectors here, or blade terminal connectors, whatever you want to call them. So they're just crimp-on connectors. I stripped the wires back here and put them in there and crimped it all down, and those connectors fit perfectly over the little terminals here on the back of this. So like you can see, if you pull this off a little bit here, see it comes with these little terminal connectors that go on there. So this is the ground. Green and yellow is the ground here. So, but I mean, those little connectors fit perfectly right over that, so that just worked out perfect with those, and we should be all good to go. And it still has the original plug on it that plugs into that, which goes up front to where the timer was, if the timer was still in it, which the timer burned out, and they didn't send me a timer for it either, so hey, whatever. At least if this will get it back running again, it's better than nothing, right? So that's my new box here with my improvised wiring harness, but actually that worked out pretty well. I mean, it almost looks like it could be factory, even though they did solder those terminals on and put heat shrink wrap over them and everything originally, but I mean, that looks like a really nice job there, if I do say so myself. So now it's time to bolt this thing in here with the original teeny tiny hardware here. So I got screwdriver here, which hopefully this should be the correct size to fit in there, so it'll fit nice. And then I have my ratchet here with a 5.5 millimeter socket on it and an adapter to make it fit, which fits that little nut on the back side. It's a 5.5 millimeter nut, lock nut on the back. So time to throw this in here and see if it'll actually work. Oh my, I cannot believe this stupid thing. I don't understand how this even happened. Apparently the new box they sent me is the wrong one. It looks exactly like the correct one, but it's like just a hair wider than the original box, even though it looks basically identical. It's probably even the same part number and everything. I mean, everything looks identical with it. I don't see any difference, hardly, except it will not fit in the hole here for the ride. I've tried it this way, I've tried it that way, even though it was this way originally. No matter what I do with this, you can see it's just a hair too wide to fit in that hole. I mean, there's absolutely no way to make it fit. It's just a teeny tiny hair too wide on each side. And actually, if anything, it's almost not as tall either, but I've tried every which way to try to shove this thing in here, even seeing if I could bend the sides in and make it fit and force it, and there's just no way to make this freaking thing fit. It's like impossible to make it fit in there. So I don't know what the I'm supposed to do with this stupid thing now, because it won't fit in here. I don't think I can even really make it fit from the back side, but I mean, I guess you could try to do it that way, but it's not really designed to go that way either. It did originally go in this way with this whole black piece on the outside here. It didn't bolt in from behind, and it should go in here, but obviously it doesn't. For whatever reason, I can't make it fit. So that's not gonna work that way, at least the way it should be. I can still try to make it fit from behind, because basically I don't really have any other options with it. I mean, if I can't get it to fit in here, I don't think it's like they can send me another box. I mean, they sent me this box. I'm assuming this is the one that they can get. They can't get the original sized one that fits properly, or else they would have sent me that one. So if this is the only one they make now, and the hole is too small to make this fit, because the other one was slightly smaller for whatever reason, then they're not going to be able to send me the correct one. Like I said, or else I figured they would have already sent me the correct one that'll work. But this one, I just cannot make it fit. So I'm going to have to try to jerry-rig it and see if I can make it work from the back side, I guess. I don't know what else I would do with it. So let me try to see if I can bolt it in from behind, I guess. Wow, what a colossal pain in the it is. As you can see, I ended up having to tip the ride over on its side, which I really almost didn't want to do, because I can hear the tires here cracking and popping and stuff when I rocked it over on the side here on the wheels there. I did not like the sound it was making there. It doesn't sound good. I hope I didn't break anything. That's all I can say. But I ended up having to tip her up on the side here. I mean, you can see some of the mechanics here at least now. So that's the motor that runs it. And it's got a chain drive up to this shaft here that moves the back of the ride up and down. And then up towards the front here, it's probably got another little cam here somewhere that rocks it around. So here's another little mechanism there that makes it move. You see, so there's like a little cam down here with a lever, and then there's like a longer one that runs up to there. And I honestly thought there might have been something else in the front here that rocks it around, but maybe there's just like a couple different platforms here. Like it looks like it moves there and moves there, like side to side, and then that kind of makes it go up and down. Like, I don't know, it's kind of interesting how all that works. But anyway, it's not the point I was trying to do here. So I ended up having to tilt it up on the side, and then you can sort of see in here somewhere. There it is. You can sort of see in there, there's the bottom screw that I had to put up there to hold the box in place. So I tried to reach my hand inside here to get up to it, which, to be honest, it's still kind of a tight fit to get in there between this bottom piece and where that box is. You can see my hand barely fits in there, so I was kind of like moving the box up in order to try to get that nut on. It was still a pain in the ass, but it was easier than trying to go up from the top side up here through the little skirt and then having to reach down like underneath here behind this box in order to get at it that way. I did finally manage to get, there's the top screw on it and the bottom screw, so it's all tightened in there, and I ended up having to put it in from behind instead of from the front the way it should be, but hey, whatever works. The plugs are still plugged in there on the back of it, and then it runs up here, and I plugged it into the wiring harness there. That runs over there and then down into the frame tubing, and runs all the way up to the front over here and then comes up. You can see some of the wiring here that comes up and then goes in there. So, any event, and doesn't quite look right, but hey, if it works and I can plug it in, who the cares? And then the cover is going to be covering it anyways, but at least it's in there. It's supposed to go in there from the front, but what the I guess I made it work going from the back too. The only thing I'm a little concerned about is when I was tightening it down, because I'm putting it through from behind instead of from the front. It looks like it cracked a little bit right there when I was trying to tighten it down, that little front piece there. So hopefully that'll be alright and it won't be an issue. But now I gotta tilt this thing back down. I already plugged it in down there, so I don't have to worry about around with it once it's down on the ground again to plug it back in. So I plugged that in first before I dropped it down. This side is still not plugged into anything at least, so. And now I gotta rock this thing down gently, but see, that's what I don't like. Is that cracking sound here. But, well, it's down. Like I said, hopefully nothing is broken down here or anything. I mean, it all looks okay as far as I can tell. I mean, I'm missing a lug nut cap here, it looks like, but I think that was probably missing from before. But now it's back on its feet. Well, actually, it landed right in that cup, amazingly enough. So that ended up where it belongs, but I got to, oh, this one's close. Means I'm going to take much just to scoot that over. There we go. Now that's in that cup. So actually, somehow I managed to actually drop it down almost perfectly in the spot where it was. So, hey, can't complain about that. And actually, geez, I'm missing another lug nut cap here too for some reason. I don't know why that is. I don't know why I'm missing that one. But, well, I think it's in place here at least, so. I mean, its little foot is in that cup there, so it doesn't move. So, I guess we can plug it in here. And of course, you gotta love finding more change underneath the ride there, so I found another $1.05 in quarters underneath the ride when I lifted it up. So A little reward there, at least for my work, right? I know it ain't much, but alright, so let me plug this thing in now and see if it will work. Now it's time for the moment of truth here. Alright, that should be off. Let's plug this in and see if we have power now. Fingers crossed that this works, right? Alright, we're primed and ready to go. In 3, 2, 1. Anything? Anything at all? Bueller? So what, after all that, it's still not working? What in the huh. Wonder why it's still not working. You really? All that for nothing? The what a pain in my alright, now I gotta figure out what the else could possibly be wrong with this thing. Well, chalk that one up to stupidity on my part. So there's nothing wrong with the switch. I was testing it. Everything is working fine. Apparently the problem is back here where the timer is supposed to go. Left these unplugged. So that would be why it's not getting any power. Just because of that. So that's why it wasn't working. Nothing to do with the switch box. But I tested it back here at least. And I have power at the cord. And also have power here, which I didn't have before. So that's a good sign. So definitely know I've got power back there. So once I hook this up, hopefully maybe the ride will actually work. So let's plug these guys in here. There you go. So works a lot better when the plugs are plugged into each other, right? Okay, so let me shove this mess back in here. Time being. Get in there. Alright. So, now the moment of truth. Alright. Take 2. In 3, 2, 1. Let's try this again. Now it should work. Hey, dun 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 dun, we have power. Holy look at that. I fixed it. Finally. Hello, it's loading. We got lights. Hey, look at that. The KC Cobra is finally back in action. Yes. Gotta love that. Thumbs up on a job well done. Now, of course, if I was smart, I would have brought this with me to replace. While I had the thing flipped over on the side, I could have taken that off and replaced it with a new one. But, of course, I wasn't thinking about that and didn't bring it with me. So, I'll have to do that some other time. But hey, at least it's up and running right now, which is the most important thing, because It's been down for so long, not generating any money. So, hey, I'm just happy to have this thing back up in a running condition again, finally. Man, what a pain. I'll tell you. Man, it sucks that I had to hook this up backwards, basically, and run it from the inside. But hey, whatever I gotta do to make it work, right? Because that box wouldn't fit in from the front side like the original one did for some reason. So had to make do, getting it to work however I can make it work, right? So now all I gotta do is put the little screws on here for the skirt and bolt that back in place. Put the cover back on here and should be all set. Alright, so now that I got everything hooked back up here and locked up and everything, let's see if this will actually work. So, got to test it out here. Well, at least the build changer worked. So it looks like it's working. This is harder than it looks. Of course, the steering is like really sketchy on it. Boom, bouncing off the walls here. Holy, I mean, kind of let off the gas a little bit, but why do that when you can just baby? Here, give me some of the gas there. I'm gonna have to hit the, well, so much for hitting the jump button there. That didn't really work. I mean, it will work. God, I suck at this. I think I could do a little better than that. This thing is really sketchy. Ooh. I missed the turbo gas. Uh-oh. Jump! So the steering is a little goofy on this, but I didn't get very good height there. Alright, I think I made it around the track once already, at least. Well, I didn't really need it there. Yeah, I'm running out of time here. Oh, there we go. That worked out a little better. not to hit the traffic here. Time to jump. And I missed all those coins. It's not good. Not good to be hitting oncoming traffic like that, let me tell you. Trying to avoid the barrels, Donkey Kong style. Like I said, it's a little, the steering is a little sketchy on this thing. Oh man, I ran out of time. I was like right there on the coin too. Oh well, hey, it works. Interestingly enough, the score like immediately goes away when you're done. But hey, everything's working again. Gotta love that. So now the Casey Cobra is finally back in action, baby.